What is up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of The Danny Show. I'm your host, Daniel Cody, and this is where I give commentary and reviews on all things wrestling. And before I get started, I would like to send a special shout out to the new subscriber, Jack Hussey. Thank you so much for your subscription. Based on one of your funny shorts you did, your coach likes chicken. When your coach likes chicken and makes a speech that tells you it. It was just absolutely amazing, very entertaining. Who knows? It's football season, so for every win his team gets, they'll celebrate with Buffalo Wild Wings. So, thank you for joining. Now, before I talk about SmackDown, let's talk about a very interesting week it has been in AEW. So, where do I start? First off, CM Punk wins the championship. I reviewed All Out. CM Punk wins the championship, and after All Out, he does a press conference where he goes off on everyone, including Colt Cabana, um, Adam Page, and whoever the heck shares a bank account with his mother. He went out on, he went all out, no pun intended, on all of them, and I think that's what sparked some of the backstage fights that went down between Punk, his coach, and some of the members of Elite, amongst others. And because of that, the Elite, who are the producers of AEW, I did not know that, got suspended. So they are no longer Trios champion. The Death Triangle is. And now we have a tournament to find out who will be the undisputed AEW champion. And we also found out that, and I got to understand where Booker T came from on Reality of Wrestling when he said that for Punk to say he made $1 million house on his back. He said if that were him hearing that, he would want to fight. I'm not saying who's right or who's wrong. You be the judge of that in the comment section below. But all I'm saying is it has been one heck of a week as far as wrestling is concerned. And I'm seeing a lot of shorts from what Triple H said in 2011, all those segments. It seems to be coming in full circle to what's going on right now. However, FTR, whom we once knew as the Revival, came to CM Punk's defense and saying that Punk is actually a pretty good guy. So I don't know who's wrong, who's right. All I know is very interesting week. Let's get started with tonight's episode of SmackDown from Seattle with a great international opening from the Brawling Brutes, Sheamus, Pete Dunne, and Ridge Holland, against the returning team Imperium, featuring Walter, Kaiser, known as Berthel, and Vinci. Now, before I get started, speaking of international flavor, I would like to send a special condolence to the family of Queen Elizabeth because the Queen of London has passed on, and I know she's in a better place, but I know there are a lot of people here that are going to miss her. So thoughts and prayers to the family of Queen Elizabeth. My condolences, my sincerest condolences. And my condolences also to Ronda Rousey's trainer, whom she recently lost. That's why she came out in that pink robe, giving homage to one of her trainers. Now let's get started with the 6-man tag match tonight with the international team. Love how Pete Dunne and Walter faced off. It gave me nostalgia. We didn't get to see Sheamus and Walter tag in on each other. By the time we did, it went to commercial break. We also saw Ridge Holland get dominated throughout most of the match. Pete is still a finger snapper. And of course, we saw Vinci get 25 beats to the chest. And now it is time for another episode of The Red Chest Diaries. So, with that being said, despite all of that, Imperium wins. And I noticed Michael Cole said the W word, wrestling, alluding to how Walter wants to purify the sport of wrestling. The word itself is a forbidden word under McMahon's leadership, but Triple H has made that a legal word now. Why they made it illegal in the first place is beyond me. Also, we have Raquel and Aaliyah facing off against Toxic Attraction. Corey is very funny on commentary when he said that Aaliyah doesn't like her, just like Bailey doesn't like Michael Cole, as that short that Bailey released earlier today proves. Um, it was funny. Aaliyah hid the fact that she was training to be a wrestler from her parents. Gigi's parents hid that she was their daughter. That's funny, Corey. But in any event, Raquel and Aaliyah win the match tonight. However, I don't know if they're going to be so lucky against the evil Sky and Kai this Monday. Indeed. Just kidding. But Damage Control is a very interesting trio. Also, tonight we also had a 5 women's fatal 5-way match with Rousey, Lacey Evans, who told a fan to kiss her butt because she's not going face, just like MJF will never go face. Once an MJF heel, always an MJF heel. Also, you have Natty, Lacey, Zaya, Sonya, and Rousey. Liv Morgan watched way up in the high class booth as Natalia's ship got ripped. It's funny because Natalia calls herself the boat, but Booker T did a podcast on reality of wrestling with another show called The Boat. It's 2 boats of wrestling. Interesting. But in any event, we have that. We have, I love how Rousey and Sonya Deville tapped out their respective opponents at the same time. And I love the UFC vibes that came near the end of the match before Rousey tapped out Sonya through the ankle lock. Speaking of all those things, anybody remembers that amazing cage match between Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle in 2008? It had a lot of UFC vibes to that as well, and it was a great cage match at Lockdown. And I featured this in my Samoa Joe countdown, so be sure to check that out. Think you might like it. Also, Hit Row and the Street Profits take on Maximum Male Models and Los Mathorios. That is a very interesting tag we saw tonight with the finger tag. I've never seen anything like that. That was something. And then we also saw everybody, Montez Ford fly. I wanted to see Top Dollar fly, but we didn't get to see Top Dollar fly. Darn it, that would have been so much fun to see. However, that reminded me of when Mark Henry was supposed to dive off the top rope onto the ground in front of everyone during their match at Money in the Bank at WrestleMania 25, but it never happened. But moving forward, let's talk about Braun Strowman coming back. Some of you saw my All Out review when I reviewed it on Monday morning and said at the end that I hoped Strowman returned that night, and he did. He came back tonight after Shad Gable, whom obviously learned nothing from Elias, dissed Seattle. You have learned nothing from what Elias and Kevin Owens did wrong. They dissed Seattle, and Seattle was pissed off. They blew it at Kevin and Elias, and they did somewhat the same tonight, but it wasn't as intense as Elias and Kevin Owens. They let those two have it in 2018. That was 4 years ago. They let them have it. Moving forward, Braun Strowman came out, has new music, and he powerbombed Otis. That was wow. Let's get into the main event. I believe I covered everything. So earlier tonight, the Usos and Sami Zayn, who is silly, welcomed Solo Sikoa, and Sami called him dope AF. And the Usos were looking at Sami like, stop trying to be hip. Just please stop. It's kind of like what would happen if Chris Teacher from Everybody Hates Chris tries to be hip. It would just totally look off. But as long as y'all don't do what Mr. McMahon did with John Cena in Survivor Series 2005, I am good. That will be on premium locked this year on Peacock for two reasons. Number one, because of the offensive language that McMahon used, and also because of a certain wrestler who faced Booker T, Chris, and everybody wants to forget him because of what happened in summer of 2007. But let's get into the main event. First of all, Solo will be one of the couple of people who did not stay in NXT long enough to win the championship, because had he stayed long enough, he probably would have got some NXT code, like the North American Championship, which Ricochet from SmackDown is contending for, and our NXT Championship. Just like Bianca never got a chance to reign as NXT Women's Champion, but she was a contender for the championship, so I'll give that. But let's get into the main event. Solo, even though he didn't stay long enough to win NXT Gold, he really controlled the match between Drew and himself, and he held his own real well. And of course, due the numbers game played in, the Street Profits for whatever reason came to interfere, even though their rivalry between the Usos is over. Solo will go for the super kick. Solo, by the way, is 8 years younger than the Usos. I did not know that. Solo went for the super kick, 2 count. Drew McIntyre went for the Claymore kick, got a 2. And before anything can happen, Karrion Kross comes in, and the screen goes gray. And as Corey narrated, Drew McIntyre somewhat went black as he fell out to the sleeper hole that Karrion put on. And it is official that Karrion Kross and Drew have a rivalry. But we saw this coming as Drew McIntyre was stopped and taunted for weeks by Karrion Kross. So I think this is going to be an interesting rivalry. However, Drew McIntyre cannot catch a break. We got to see what happens next week on Friday Night SmackDown. Let me know what you think about this week's episode of SmackDown, as well as what you think about this whole fallout with Punk, the Elite, and AEW. Let me know your thoughts on that and who's right or who's wrong in your opinion. But for now, that's all the time I have for you today. I'm your host, Daniel Cody, and I'll be back with another review on all things wrestling. Have a great weekend, everyone.